Welcome to the new professional StarCraft 2 with our first finalist and the very first games we've seen from him on the new StarCraft 2 balance patch, the rank 1 Protoss in the world in the blue. It's hero. Facing off against the perpetual underdog, the Zerg in red, we have SHIN. In a best of 5 Protoss versus Zerg grand finals to Cranky Duckling's sparkling Tuna Cup. And we'll see which of these big fish gets fried and who survives. But before we get started, it'd be incredible. You could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. And we got the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,868 likes on this video, on this cast. I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Hero opens things up, he gets the Warpgate research upgrade, which doesn't quite have the effect it once did. The Warpgate research upgrade now speeds production out of all gateways. Yes, the raw version, the non-Warpgate gateway, which hurt my brain to say, but by about 40%. But in order to open up the warp gates, each individual warp gate, you got to pay the tax. 25 minerals and 25 gas. So I'm interested to see what a hero does differently. Now, Zerg, on the other hand, larva spawns about 10-12% quicker. Hatcheries cost 25 minerals more. So generally, Zerg is thought to have gotten a buff overall in the patch. And for good reason. Pretty much everything they got was a buff. Now, major, minor, somewhere in between, that remains to be seen. But Hero doesn't seem to be changing things up too drastically. It's going to be an Oracle. He actually has a second gate in the main base, which is not, and opens up the warp gates immediately. We're not messing around with any sort of silly gateway timings. Instead, just paying the tax and opening up a couple warp gates. Few adepts, little shady bunch down the center. The Oracle is out. And no longer do you need super pylons. Probably the biggest buff to Warpgate. You do not need a gateway or a nexus near a pylon. You warp it in 4 seconds, no matter what. So proxy pylons are back on the menu. And Hero, I'm sure, is quite the connoisseur. As the first adepts show up, and SHIN doesn't have nearly enough Zerglings to deal with it. He's actually down 3 workers right now, forced to build a few more, cancels. And Hero manipulating that drone count. Without killing a single drone, he's still able to keep it limited. As SHIN obligated to build these early Zerglings because the threat of adepts is too damn high, and the queens still struggle off the creep, but he gets the surround, trying to kite back. A lot of the adepts will be badly bruised and maybe torn down, but a few of them make it into the main. The Oracle's coming across the map, going to target down some of the drones, but you shall not pass! Brenda, what the I said what I said. I don't... The Queen holds the line, but the Oracle's now untouched. As they slide through, gonna pick off a few extra drones, turns around again, and manipulates the Spore Crawler, and Hero ends up with 9 drone kills. Though it did cost him most of the adepts. Has a couple back at home, the shield battery's done. Those adepts... Okay. Alright, he's just gonna target the shield battery. The Oracles are on their way back. Hero taking his 3rd base with absolutely no shame. Even Moracles are on the way. And Hero... Another deplorable build as the pylons warping in the adepts yet again. Leave it to Hero 2. The first game. Well, he had to win some games to get this far in the tournament, all right? The spoilers. The Sparkling Tuna Cup. Prestigious, but maybe not as high profile. Make sure to check out Cranky Ducklings, by the way. They cast so much and they host so many, especially smaller tournaments for players you might not have heard of. Not these players, obviously, but that's real Community StarCraft, too. Jimmy, put a link in the description, or the comments even. Don't you forget. Hit the hose again. Twilight and Forge on the way. Adepts still. The minimap's a bit of a mess. The Adepts tucked into the minerals, and the Triumvirate of Oracles is a holding station. SHIN catches up in the worker count, but overall, Hero has managed to keep about even. Behind it, Twilight Council researching charge. And +1 ground weapons. 3 more drones dead. The Adepts surrounded and killed, but Adepts again! But wait, there's more! And even more drones dead, but it is costing the Adepts each time. He's now lost 13 of them. But overall, 17 drones, 28 Zerglings. is that, well, he's burninating across the countryside and through the hatchery. Voracles now just melting through the hatch. And again, SHIN will be beaten back and beaten down economically. A Spire is on the way, though, which is a dangerous choice, as if hero gets wind of it, or if he just gets a whiff of it, which I assume Protoss' sense of smell is quite strong considering their lack of mouth. So it's more concentrated. And that's all I have to say about that. But the Spire, so far, completely unscouted. The very back of the main base. Hero hasn't seen anything there since the lair was morphing quite a while ago. And, well, the unseen mutas are the deadliest. Especially if he's able to get them all the way across the map. Muta's got a kind of a micro... Oh my, it's beautiful, terrible, disgusting, and inspiring. The Oracle's lighting up. Well, the Queens! This is restricted lair space! The hatchery, nearly dead. A liability now, potentially. But there are 13 mutas in the production tab. And that is quite a quandary to deal with. Blink and +2 are on the way, but there's... The anti-air is a single stalker, which is not enough. I don't... The Oracles will fly back. That proxy pylon continues to be quite the difficulty. He's going to dive on the Queens, but the mutas... Where are the mutas? They're spotted over to the side. Phoenix's fleet beacon on the way. The Oracles will be targeted down by the Queens, but the Queens cloven through, eviscerated by the charge lots. The muta count is so damn high. He's sprinting across the map. Well, sprinting is maybe not the right word, but the mutas... being distracted by the Oracle. He charges through the hatchery. SHIN's back to 3 bases. Hero never left. Cannon's on the way. The fleet beacon for Phoenix range. He desperately needs it. The beacon is not yet lit, but he calls for aid. The cannon. So mutas are now more reliable to micro. That's the summary of arc slot plus targets, if you were reading the patch notes. You can definitely feel it, but it doesn't help them against units that already hard counter them, like Phoenix's, as Phoenix's both outrange mutas and firewall moving, while being slightly faster as well. So they are about the hardest counter anything can get, while they technically can fight one another. The Archons with an overwhelming amount of power, and the mutas are driven back. But at the same time, there's nothing on the ground. The Roaches and Ravagers. He has +1 in roach speed. The Oracle lights up to try to cut into this, but the sheer amount of units... Hero's been focused on dealing with the mutas, but he hasn't dealt with the ground army. Picks up another Ravager, flailing around in the air. The mutas will actually swing in. 16 probes dead so far, but Hero holds! At least for now. Dodges away from the corrosive bile. The Immortal pops out to blast its way through the Roaches. And Hero will drive the Zerg back. But we have to ask ourselves that eternal question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? He chases down the Roaches. The army supply still in favor of SHIN, but Hero's about to have +2 attack. He has Blink Stalkers and Immortals. These are about the hardest counters to Roaches that you can get. Much like the Phoenix's countering the mutas. Technically, Roaches in high enough quantity, both +2 attack for both sides. Picks up some of the Roaches. Blink is done, starts kiting back. The proxy pylon still. The Immortals waddling across, but Hero has the army to deal with it. A Spore Crawler will reposition, but the Immortals caught out in front. He's going to try to dive right on top. He gets it easily. The Blink Stalker's kiting back, but a few Zerglings mixed in makes it a lot more difficult to concentrate his fire. Another warp in, though, and the defender's advantage is not so much when Hero's warping in from about the distance that your hatcheries are. Meanwhile, the 4th base under fire yet again. Hero has been rebuilding probes. Targets down some more Roaches. There's still a muta, or I don't know if he rebuilt it, but Hero's sitting on the edge of things. And right now it does rest on the edge. As SHIN refilling as quickly as possible, and this is where the buff to larva is kicking in somewhat dramatically. A little bit of extra larva could make all the difference, but is it enough to turn the tide? As the charge lots do what they do best, the Stalkers behind picking off a lot of the Roach reinforcements. Another Immortal wanders forward, holds its ground, and is put down. And SHIN with just a few too many Roaches. The Immortals, not enough. The Phoenix is knocked out of the sky, and SHIN has a marginal advantage. So Hero, of course, starts a mothership. He got that fleet beacon. He didn't use it, as the obligation to get Phoenix range was removed with the mutas a while ago. But the mothership can, of course, turn the tide. Something of that massive size is clearly something that requires respect. And I respect your mother very much. Carrier, Immortal, and Mothership on the way, because of course they are. The quintessential Protoss production tab. Only the power units here. Now, of course, he does have the Warpgate, so they don't show up in the production tab for very long. But SHIN's starting to stabilize. And hero does not... He has 11 Stalkers and 3 Charge Lots. There are 27 Roaches and dozens of Zerglings on the field. And I fear that, well, the Mothership might be able to save the day. But for how long? There's not going to be detection. So cloaking is actually going to be a potentially game-changing opportunity. But the Mothership is not quite done. The Roaches are closing in. He needs to hold this base. Right now, the Mothership's going the wrong way! Oh no, where is she going? Oh, changes directions. But that extra 5 seconds. He recalls the Stalkers back to the base. The Mothership has arrived, active cloaking just in time. But shit is maxed out. He needed it here before the army got here. He needed to be able to hold. And even then, I don't know if it would have been enough. But SHIN holds the line. Hero never settled on a unit composition. And I don't think he's going to be settling at all. SHIN. Overrun. Is hero. The Mothership tried its best. Its best. Not good enough. The Mothership tried to get to... That's just so many Roaches. So many Lings. The Mothership... Ooh. Hero with a severe lack of Gs. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Inspired by Clem, but... Hero clearly not happy with the outcome. But SHIN, with the tech switch into mutas, it wasn't enough to win outright. But it was enough to keep hero off balance. And start some more arguments about balance, potentially. SHIN, I want to point out SHIN using the portrait and the in-game portrait of the #1 ranked Zerg player. Dark. Ranked by Dark. The inspiration could come back to us, Dark. Now's the time. Please commentate. Well, I don't know if they were chatting between the games, but maybe hero making his thoughts known. So, it's been less than a week. The larva change is a big buff to Zerg. Now, as much... Is it time to let the meta settle? I say as a salty Zerg. I'm 1/3 Zerg myself. A little more so since the patch. It's been... I will be honest, it has been... probably about 4 years since I went multiple days playing Zerg without essentially rage quitting and playing Protoss and Terran. Not because Zerg is necessarily weak, but because the playstyle is so tedious. Where you're just getting slapped around and cyberbullied by units that you can't really hit or counter until later in the game. So, it definitely feels more swarmy. Too swarmy? Are the change? I will say, while the changes to larva are ridiculously strong, I want to keep that. Okay? I would never have advocated for it, but now that we're here, it has not felt like Zerg. And it's not... So if you get to the late game, there's still a distinct struggle. Zerg is not significantly better against Sky Toss or Ghosts. But, I don't think the Carapace, just to editorialize, I don't think the Carapace upgrade needs to be cheaper. I don't think Microbial Shroud needs more range. It might still need an upgrade. These things are not really needed. But the larva really does help it feel like playing Zerg. So, hopefully, the intern, or whoever's doing the balance patches, we have no idea, and we get no explanation. To be clear, everyone... I want to make it clear that everyone who's saying this is why something was changed is making it up. It's bullshit. Alright? Unless they are the intern on an alt account. And by that we mean somebody at Blizzard. And we're not sure who, we're not sure why any particular change was made. Though it's clear that they are taking inspiration from certain places, it is not official where those places are. Is that a kind of ridiculous situation that leaves a lot of doubt and a ridiculous amount of ambiguity? Absolutely yes. Is the fact that the patch changes both core mechanics for Zerg and Protoss, and we change the entire map pool, going to make it almost impossible to judge which of those things is actually relevant and which is a red herring, effectively, that you can use for your silly arguments, but not actually affecting things? Like, for example, we're not even talking about the 8 workers start. Because, as I expected, and many higher level players expected, it doesn't really do much but add another 30-40 seconds of time to fill for casters in the beginning of the game. At least so far, it seems that most players are treating it as a bit of a breather, mostly the trash talk in the early game. So, hero has there's a Stargate in the wall, which is awkward because there are enough Zerglings here to be a threat. But there's no Zergling speed, so not sure why SHIN. I guess he wanted to take advantage of the late wall off that hero, you know, it's hero, so. But well, Cyril already wins everything when he actually participates. So I think we just need to unironically ignore Cyril. Spoilers. Hero has won more. Well, maybe that's changed recently, but up until the beginning of this patch, Hero has won more major tournaments than the entire rest of the world combined. Yeah, over the last 8 months or so. And while we love it, and love to see it, especially in Korea, he's just untouched. Despite how touchable he seems. Which, Jimmy, edit that out. Somehow, he's the most clutch player in the game. His Boris Gumpian style of Protoss just seems to work. Though right now, it's working kind of awkwardly, as the Stargate is... He's just gonna get the He could get the Stargate. He's gonna run it out. He could have killed the Stargate. SHIN. I guess he would have lost some extra Zerglings, but I'm surprised he didn't commit to killing the Stargate. Hero? What? A fleet beacon? Just gonna rush straight up to Sky Toss. He tried to match on the field. I feel like the Adepts did quite well. But they did cost him a whole lot of map control. And, well, they just cost him in resources, straight up. Like, a dozen Adepts cuts into all the rest of your production. And Zerg can recover a little more quickly. And now I need to point out that the larva increase is just for the 3 larva. It's not anything to do with larva inject from the queens, which is independent of the 3 OG larva that each hatchery can produce on its own. The Adepts are caught! A mothership rush? Of course it is. Hero's like, well, the real issue is I didn't get my mothership fast enough. Which... Considering he's gonna have a mothership right around the time SHIN gets a lair, might be true. And well, Hero actually has 60 to 62 workers, though SHIN's shoring that up now. That Stargate, maybe regretting a bit putting it in the wall, will re-shield it with a battery. Though he hasn't used it in quite a while. Of course, it's a prerequisite for the fleet beacon. Brenda? Oh, it's just sad. But still. Fine. Get off my creep! Nice. Oh, shut up. I don't know. You shut up, Susan. Sorry, I lagged out for... Second Oracle, the queens just kind of scatter throughout. The mothership is done. Well, hello there. How you doing? Behind it, charge. Hero going with the full turtle toss here. Will the mothership be scouted? Yep. Surprise! Just sitting in his base and building up. And this is not a style that Hero is a huge fan of, as we already saw. But I think he's like, fine. They're going to be so strong on the field. Well, I'll just sit in my base and build Templar and Mothership, and we'll see how well that does. Well, we will, won't we? Because SHIN has actually taken quite a bit in getting to this point economically. He's building roaches and hydras, which is, yep, those are units you can build. They're not particularly great, but it's a quantity build, and quantity has a quality all its own. The thing is, Storm should be done by the time that the roaches and hydras arrive. And if it isn't, oh, this is actually a really dangerous timing. Storm still about 20 seconds out, but the adepts come in at the perfect time. Hero pulls the army back. SHIN getting bait. Oh, masterfully done. The roaches and hydras. He loses 5 drones, and the entire army turns around. Behind it, SHIN is going to macro it out. He's got the infestation, but he's got the spire. And, but Storm is complete. Wait, what? No, it's not! Contaminate! I'm like, why is it still in production then if it's so complete? Well, it's not, because Contaminate actually delayed it. Significantly so. And that could cost him a Nexus. The Contaminate plays with the Overseer to delay production. And that actually costs him everything. Wow, what a play. But at the same time, the Zealots are slicing through the reinforcements. SHIN with a huge play, but don't call him Shakespeare yet. As back at home, he has to deal with this. Still. The damage. He lost 10 drones, but he killed the Nexus. He got the Robo. Hero still splitting off the charge lots. He's going to get a few more drones in the main. 1 more drones in the main. The Hive begins. Hero's going for double forge, but the Contaminate on Storm. A potentially game-winning move. As, well, Hero is just resigning himself to Mass Templar, which, you know, is not the worst unit to have. You can actually blink up here. You can put a siege tank up there, too. Fun fact. For people who can do that. But the storms are available. And the Time Warp, the Storm of the Time Warp! Storms everywhere! The Mothership will be taken down, but the Storm's apocalyptic. Wait, what? What a save! The Mothership lives, and the army's just gone. Hero, and now he has Archons he has to suffer through after. I mean, Hero just destroyed pretty much everything. There's only 1 Hydra. The Mothership will live. The charge lots are slicing through another mineral line. He's cutting off the reinforcements with the main army while the charge lots just cut off the drones. And the Archons are boxing out. The Mothership survives. And Hero, with his begrudging, his spiteful, sit in my base and build all the good unit strategy, just kind of bops SHIN out on the field. SHIN, he had near 200 supply. And it just died. The storms wash him away. SHIN. He types the Korean GG, but just jumps off a cliff. The storm's washing him away. And Hero, I bet Hero's upset about that one. He was like, I can't believe this. It's so stupid. Zerg's so OP. But Storm, unfortunately for SHIN, is still very, very good. And, well... And now here's an important part, is after the storms are gone and the energy is drained. Unfortunately, all you can do with Templar is build Archons, which are only good against biological units. Unfortunately for SHIN, all units and buildings for Zerg are biological. I used all builds prepared, says Hero. SHIN says, such tough game. You know, they're both lying. Because we all know Zerg's easier, and we all know that hero doesn't have any builds prepared. Okay, I don't think that's true. I think hero has, like... It's like a stew, alright? You just keep throwing things in there, but you have a general idea. You got some salt, you got some... There's salt, and then there's other ingredients, too. And then, baby, you got a stew going, alright? Which... feels like hero's strategy, and then he dumps that stew onto his opponents. So players will try to sneak a drone by. He stays on the ramp, because if he goes into the mineral line, there could be a drone that sneaks by here. He actually spots that. He spotted the creep, so now Shin's forced down to the third base. But, so technically Storm got nerfed. Yeah, I know. Crazy, but... it now does only 100 damage, as opposed to 110, which is still more than enough to kill a Hydra or a Zergling. So, Storm has, since the changes in the last intern patch, almost a year ago now, the year that Hero has won more tournaments than anyone else in the world combined, just throwing that out there, Storm was reduced to... okay, well, it lasts longer, but it does more damage overall. But generally per second, it was nerfed, which is a pretty big nerf against Terran, who has medevacs and ranged unit. But Zerg is not known for either of those things. Even Hydra's the longest range unit are incredibly fragile. So, a pressure wave of storms is usually enough to keep the Zerg at bay. I think SHIN a little high on his own supply in every sense. You still can't just fight Storm. You'll lose. Like Roach Hydra, the unenthusiastic hand job of unit compositions, it gets the job done, but is it exciting? No. You have to check out my Dronely fans for more. Link to Patreon in the description. But I mean, we're leaving it. I have strong feelings about how bad Roach Hydra is. Just build Zerglings and Banelings. I don't care about Adepts. I don't know. Sorry. We are on a 4-player map, but Hero and Shin both scouted the right direction first. I'm not sure if we're limited in the spawns, because some of the maps have tubes for scouting. This map does not. It's actually, I think, our largest map in the pool. And with the most curious terrain, tomfoolery, if you would. Stargate is on the way, but Hero just keeps flipping Adepts back and forth. And we'll see what he's got in store. Shin was completely done mining gas for quite a bit. Oh, the Adept! Got him. Got her, I guess, technically, but... Adepts caught and killed. 3 drones total. A Void Ray on the way. What? Is that a... that's a good wall. But Hero did make it, so I'm double checking. Not that I can see anything until the Zerglings try to get in, but... it's multiple Void Rays in this economy? And he's not going to go for the obvious Overlord. He's going to try to get as many as possible. And if he's lucky, he'll get 3 to 4. Which is actually a real problem. That will supply block shit, even the first one. And just... The Overlord, Gimme, edit that out. Just dies. There's more Overlords further out, but they're actually so far out that he hasn't noticed them. One Overlord pulls back, but that is a hard supply block right there. He was at 51/44. Meanwhile, another one popped like an overripe tomato. And 2 Void Rays. We've tried Oracles. We're trying Void Rays now. Void Rays got no changes in the patch. Overlords are technically slightly slower. Not nearly as slow as in the first iteration. Notably, oh, he does have Warpgate, but he just hasn't opened up the Warpgates. It is a lot to... retraining your muscle memory to use gateways as gateways at a certain point in the game is absolutely... well, hero's not bothering. Another Overlord will be caught. And this will supply block Shin again. Make sure he gets the whole tag team duo there. So, the Void Ray is just... that's 3 OVs so far. The lair isn't even done, so Hydras are still quite a ways off. Assuming that's the direction he wants to go. There's Blink for Hero on the way. Targeting down some of the drones, the queens. Politely yet firmly ask him to leave. Hydra Den and Bane Nest tucked into the back corner. Now, Hero probably anticipating exactly that. It's very likely that that was going to be the response, but Hero actually only had 40... One thing he didn't get. Wait, what? It's a fake. He wants him to scout how many... Why else would you do this? He's faking the probe count. This is some real tomfoolery here. He's hiding the blink. He desperately wants... He's trying to bait Shin. Like, oh, he's grown up... Every time. I never learned that. Except he gets into the main and he sees everything. Shin is already at 63. Hero, like... He's trying so hard to give Shin the wrong information. But... I'm not sure what he intended. Because, like... Either way, Shin has the economy and he was going to build Hydras and Lings. He did just scout this. So... the proxy pylon. So, all of that silliness is now... He could blink over the top. Feel like he might. No, he pulls back. He's going to try a Sentry Stalker timing. There are only 48 workers behind, but the longer Hero takes, the harder this is going to get. He has no upgrades. He just has the Sentries to work with. There's no Ravagers. But that's quite a concave already. Losing a lot of Sentries with near-fall energy. Great force fields. But the Sentries are almost all dead already. The Queen's tanking the damage. Are there enough Stalkers? Remember, no upgrades. That's just way too many Hydras. It's just not going to happen. Hero with one of the most awkward timings. He was really trying to do some sort of clever Blink Stalker timing, but I think he overthought it. The Void Rays do not slow down the economy. Despite killing Overlords, they're not threatening drones. So, even though he killed several Overlords, a bunch of unupgraded Blink Stalkers against Hydras are just straight up not having a good time. He's still gonna fight. Off the creep is actually... there's just too many. I think he's just... He's dead, Joe. GG. Hero with... He comes up significantly short with the Blink Stalker timing. Now here's the kind of amusing part. I feel like if he just sat back and actually macroed instead of faking it, it would have been pretty fine. But he wanted to try the proxy pylon timing, and you can't blame him for giving it a shot. But Shin, with the most standard of responses, just kind of runs him over. So, Hero giveth and Hero taketh away. Will he go back to the turtling on 3 base now? We will see. Another attempt at early aggression. Shut down. No, that was... There's a reason you don't see and haven't seen the Stalker Sentry sort of timing. Even against the previous iteration of Zerg. It doesn't get enough done quickly enough. There are too many things that counter it. I guess proxy pylons kind of being more relevant is the biggest buff. Is he going Nexus first? No. All right. I did. Maximize and get one more set of minerals. Did he chrono boost at the start of the game? He did. Or near the start. I think it was on the screen and I just didn't use my eyes. That's okay. I like to empathize. Shout out to my blind viewers. Kind of have to. Watchtower. You can actually see the radius on the minimap now, which is pretty cool. I mean, you can see it, again, if you have eyes. But we've already covered that whole topic. It's nice, little quality of life. That way you know exactly whether the vision is there. If something is at the watchtower. And you can see it without... all you have to do is select it, even in the fog of war, I believe. So... SHIN, hatch first. hero with the gate before... with the Nexus before assimilator. This is being worked out to be the... essentially the safest version that doesn't leave you straight up dead if they do early pull. The Nexus before gate and core. So you don't get your gas nearly as quick. It's kind of like a Zerg build, really. Where you delay the gas in order to maximize the minerals early and get that expansion up. And then fill in the rest later once you have the worker count. Before the patch, it was much more common to go gate, assimilator, Nexus. Because you just had more workers in the early game. But this is a bit of a trade-off. But both races do have to make it as well. By the time it finishes, he'll have enough for an adept. Does he start Warpgate immediately? He actually cancels and builds a stalker. So there's no way for SHIN to know what's coming out of that gateway. He can take some educated guesses. There's a... He can't just kill it. There's a pervert pillar right there for the Overlord to creep everyone out. Figuratively until it isn't. Overlord. Well, the Stalker comes out, but yeah, it should. Gotta make sure its little tentacles are tucked in there. Stalker making sure it can't just move over. The Stargate in the main. SHIN's now taking his third hatch. And that's all I have to say about that. Alright, we're gonna wait to see if the Stargate unit comes out. Well, it's likely an Oracle. Is that a wall? It looks like it. Making sure. This Overlord is... Yep, nope. Oh, wait, no, it's not even there. You gotta move. Bro, hello? No, I give up. So you gotta be very particular. It's important to note, always turn on that flyer helper, so that way you can see where on the ground, because it's relevant where on the ground the Overlord is relative to the vision blocker. It's not where it's actually hanging out, which I think trips up some players at the lower level especially, not realizing they need to be aiming at the ground as opposed to the where it's hanging out. Corrosive Bile, I think, is a pretty clear example. Well, SHIN at 38 workers. Hero right there with him. Third base is on the way. Not too much later than you'd see on the previous patch. Usually started by about 4 minutes. This one was started at around 4:15. Maybe a little bit later. The Oracle's just hanging out. And Hero very clearly... Well, he put a pylon at the watchtower. And there's too many adepts here. Warped in. 5 adepts in the Shady Bunch. A single Zergling. Gonna light up the Oracle. Waste of energy, but better than the Zergling nibbling on your base. 3 Oracles and a fleet beacon is on the way. Hero going straight up the tech tree. Once again... Will it be a mothership rush? or something more sinister. A second Stargate. Leans towards the second one. You know what I meant. I don't know. It sounded dumb. It only sounded that way. That's just my voice. Can't do much about that. Like and subscribe. I don't... Like and subscribe. That better. Dropper Lords. Is this a German taxi build? The explanation for those who've been wondering that and haven't heard the Lambo, the German Zerg, who came up with this the first time once Queens were nerfed to not have transfuse off of creep. So Lambo showed that you could still find an opportunity. Do these things go any faster? I don't... Yes, look! Let's kick this. Well, the oracles. The queen drop is spotted. There's a carrier on the way. Shit is at 47 drones. So clearly attempting to make this into an all-in. And there's no cannons, just shield batteries. He doesn't even have a forge. And there's quite a clutch of Zerglings. But named after Lambo, the German Zerg player, the taxi for the queens, to bring them across the map and potentially provide creep spread, because you require a layer anyways for both creep spread and for Dropper Lords. The Adepts just shade out, but the Oracles are incinerating the Ravagers here. There's a... Wait, no, he just cancels and builds Mass Oracle, because of course he does. The Corrosive Bile is whipped out, but he's just burninating through the queens. Well, he takes out the shield batteries, but I think this is... The probes in the main will be slaughtered by a single Zergling drop, which is the most damage this entire push did. And hero plummets to a 13-worker lead. He now has 7 oracles and counting. The octacle's on the way. I'm not being rhetorical. A mothership in Mass Oracle. Sure, why not? The fleet beacon may die to Zerglings, which is not something I've said very often. He's ferrying in more Zerglings. There's no upgrades here for SHIN. Well, besides the basics, but yeah, the fleet beacon will die. Well, there's a cannon in the main. The Adept gets all tucked in. The cannon's helping out. He saves 2 Zerglings, which is hilarious. They're worth it. Void Ray's in production to deal with this directly. But literally Mass Oracle into Void. Now, SHIN is building Hydras, but he only has 55 drones at the moment. Hero still clearly has the economic lead. He has a mothership on the way, which is going to be almost impossible to contend with without overwhelming numbers. It's very hard to get overwhelming numbers when you have less economy. It doesn't matter how much larva you have if you don't have the money to spend it. And this is a continuing point of contention, I think, with describing the changes as well. It's not actually a huge buff to early games, though. It is a buff, to be clear. But at some point, you just don't have the money. Like, having the extra larva is nice, but especially below 50 drones or so, it doesn't kick in as much as you might think. Though again, it is a buff. I'm not disputing that. It is 8 oracles. But he does have the mothership, and with cloak. Oh my. The oracles, but the cloak! You can't see! The disco ball strat! Oh, he can't do anything about it! What a disaster! Oh, the Hydras are just melting away! And GG! Hero, the mothership once again! Overshadowing everything. The Mass Oracle! And Hero ties up the series 2-2. What a disaster piece. Oh my. Well, well, well. And Jimmy. I'm sorry, Fear and Faith will be our next and our last map. and tubes are on the agenda. Then just do the same thing again. Hero and Shin still debating, apparently, in the lobby chat. Hero, I assume, talking about how Hero lamenting how he doesn't have builds, so he's just turtling. And Shin being like, well, why wouldn't you if it has such a... So far, Hero is 0 for 2 attacking and 2-0 defending. And once again, another series defined by Hero and his failings/successes. Though less so, it feels, than maybe it would have been a week or two ago against Shin. Now, this map has the worker tubes for scouting. And other activity. Well, only workers can go in the tubes because of... I'm not actually sure how we determined that, but there's like some little thing right at the pixel next to the... Anyways, just workers. They're worker tubes. And since this is a 4-player map, it does give some quicker scouting. But just like our previous 4-player map, Old Sun Temple, it looks like they're going to see each other immediately. The probe will be spotted by the Overlord. And the, I'm not sure if the probe scouted the Overlord. But, Hero, he's watching. And there's just not enough minerals. The hatchery does cost 300 again. The Queen still 175. That 150 buff did not go through. So it isn't the easiest thing to get everything early on. And the probe just gonna spot for all of it. Nexus on the way. There's no gas at all for Shin. And where do we go from here? So far, Hero, it really does feel begrudgingly doing the Stargate into defense builds. And, what a save! What a save! Gets out with the probe. Saved by the tube. And, well... A zealot. Just a casual zealot built. I think mostly to deal with any potential Zerglings coming out. As he's got 1 probe with this. 1, I think, to help wall off, and 2, to make it a lot harder for the Zerglings to get us around if they try to do so. Hero with a double gas. And the Adept on the way across. Shin now going for a 3rd. Will there be a Stargate? Will we have a Stargate every game? He stopped putting it at the front. Twilight Council. We're gonna mix it up for the first time. And the last. He just goes Adept Graves. I'm going to be so disappointed, but not surprised. And it might very well work. And actually, I'm not even going to be disappointed, because I think it's worth a test of whether Adept Graves, just yeeting Adepts into their base, technical term, is the way to go. And it very well could be. So the Overlord is just going to casually stroll in. It's going to spot... And it is just Adept Glaives. Alright. That doesn't mean that Shin has an easy time dealing with it. The Twilight Council is one of the most ambiguous buildings in the game. You see a Twilight, and it narrows it down to being Blink, Charge, Glaives, DTs, Rush to Archon Drop, which is a real thing, and honestly, I think it's actually stronger on the new patch, especially with the new pickup key. There's also just upgrades. That's more rare. But there's like 4 or 5 different directions, but most of them are at least partially countered by roaches. The only one that isn't so much is Blink Stalkers, which have the bonus against roaches. Even then, they're not terrible. Now, remember, quantity is the most important point. SHIN is looking for proxy pylons, which are an existential threat. You no longer need a warp prism to warp in quickly. And hero, I think, has clearly been aware of that. But he's getting a third nexus. SHIN has not spotted it yet. There's just that overlord kind of casually strolling by as the stalker will try to deal with it. Adept shading away. And a whole bunch more Zerglings in production. SHIN is at 42 workers. Hero's actually going to take the worker lead. But if he loses all the Adepts, obviously those workers could have a tough time. Glaves is done. He's casually strolling by. And I expect to cancel, and he does at the last moment. But it's so hard to cover all your bases. Oh, the Zerglings. He actually gets on the wrong side of the head. This is like worst case scenario. It still could be worse. As the Adepts get in, SHIN gonna be taking a lot of hits. He will eventually clean up the Adepts, but we of course have to ask at what cost. Gets all the way behind the mineral line. SHIN completes, and oh no! Even one Adept. 4 drones dead. The counterattack's on the way across the map. Hero has 2 Adepts and a Stalker. He's slapping down some more gates. An Immortal. And, well... the Adepts take too long warping in. A bit sloppy there. And trying to get in behind that mineral line, and he will do so. Which means that, well, the shield batteries, a single roach, the Immortals and Hero will hold. SHIN building some more drones behind it. And the shield batteries will die awkwardly. The roaches are here. He shades back into the main. Hero intimidated by a surprisingly small amount of units. He doesn't know how many Zerglings can be coming around behind that. Obviously, you can't be losing the Nexus. He really can't be... He's expecting a bunch of Zerglings. If he just gives up the Nexus, that's a huge mistake. Oh, Hero. Oh, he's just gonna lose it. Oh, well, Hero... Wow. A completely uncharacteristic bout of cowardice. So we didn't want to move down the ramp because there could have been 30 more Zerglings. But still, he just lost the Nexus while SHIN is going... He had nothing behind it. That's the downside of not having the Stargate, of course, is not feeling safe against Zerglings. But losing a Nexus to, like, 6 roaches and a half dozen Zerglings, like, that's just sad. Hero had more than enough. He had enough units with the first Immortal. But, well, he's going to go for the big counter. And the Warp Prism. It's Mass Immortal Sentry. There's just the one Sentry, but Guardian Shield plays a very important role. And Force Field's good as well. SHIN building as many units as he can. The Corrosive Bile will be scattered throughout. Adepts cancel the Shade at the last moment. Warp Prism serving the purpose of trying to save these units, but Hero just waffling around. He's gonna warp in another round. Corrosive Bile is not... He fires it up. Oh, he lost the Prism with both Immortals inside. Hero... Well, that's that. Hero just lost the Prism. And his Adept shaded away. It is worst case. What a disaster. Wow. Okay. Hero with some Major League Baseball level throws here. That was... Wow. Okay. Hero is usually a master of putting everything together in such a perfect fashion, despite times looking tough. He's usually the player who somehow finds his way through. But that felt like the anti-hero here. The villain, even. He lost the third base to nothing. He lost the Warp Prism for nothing. He loses all his Adepts for very little. And now, even despite all that... well, I think he's dead. But it might sound biased, but I want to make it clear that Hero really... I think the technical... he's rattling probes across. He fucked this up. All right? Sure, Zerg might be strong, it might be tough to deal with, but it appears that the idea of Zerg almost as dangerous as the Zerg itself. The mutas come out, but this... SHIN just capitalized on those mistakes. And, well, hero should be dead. Though it is just... Oh, okay. He just taps out. SHIN wins 3-2, bringing us to our anti-spoiler game. And our bonus game here, which I did not expect to... Anyways. Hero with 2 pretty decisive victories, 2 hard-fought ones, 2 hard-fought losses, and then whatever that was. I need to make it clear, that was just not a good game out of here. Just some very clear. Our anti-spoiler game featuring Percival, who I just wanted to point out his specialty builds. So I noticed I was looking through some of the games. I'm looking through pretty much every game I can get a hold of because I have to relearn the game too. It's a lot different. Though you can watch the streams on this channel. Got Grandmaster as Zerg last night. And I'll tell you, Protoss versus Zerg. And on the other side, Protoss versus Zerg is harder. Is it unplayable? Well, it depends on the clickbait we want. It feels like Hero already constructed his opinions before getting into the match. But I don't want to dwell on it, but that was just not good. Rarely do we see such a disaster piece of a game. At least usually with Hero, that's a bell curve. Like, it starts really bad, and then it gets really good, and then it gets bad again. Or the other way around. But the SCV stuck in the center. But that was just not good. The timings have to be worked out. SHIN clearly caught off guard, despite being prepared for the Adept Glaze. And I really think a lot of the conversation is colored by the fact that almost every Terran and Protoss is still trying to do the same builds they did 2 weeks ago, and it's not going as well because they don't work. They don't work as well. Zergs also have to adjust. Like, Pool First is much more common in order to deal with the early Reapers and Adepts. And speaking of early Reapers, Percival with the proxy in the center of the map, he's trying to dodge. He's just going to lose the Reaper, so that was kind of sad. Well, he hedged his bets because it is a 4-player map, which means he didn't know what the spawning location of Hero was. He does a proxy in the middle of the map cheese, which is something. But losing the first Reaper is certainly not ideal here. And Hero's going to be hunting him down. Oh my, what a disaster. And I do think a lot of it is the players just aren't used to the maps. This is why I talk so much about, in every video, we've got to keep doing it. It's not necessarily the 8-worker start. It's not the change to Warpgate. It might be the maps. It might be... And that's why it's so wild how much we're doing. And I'm coming around to, let's just roll with it. Okay? I don't think Zerg is clearly so strong it's unbeatable. Is it too strong to... does it pretty much prevent Protoss and Terran from moving out on the map? And forces them to turtle? Or do it all in? Well, guess what? That's how Zerg has felt for the last 4 years. We'll see. I've seen very little TVP. So far, again, pros have mostly stuck with their guns, pun somewhat intended. Hero going for Blink. Percival tried the proxy Reaper, but following up with 2 racks, and then a Banshee with Cloak? Okay. He drops a Mule. Is that too early? No, Percival! Not exactly the most efficient mule pathing. Believe it or not. Well, it should have figured it out now. He's got Stim and Cloak on the way. Meanwhile, Hero's just building off of gateways. which will get him his stalkers quicker. I think you can build out of 2 gateways the same amount of stalkers you could have warped in with 3. The hallucinated warp prism is certainly a choice. He will get a scout. He scouts the... I believe he scouted the cloak researching. First of all, cancels the cloak, goes for the Raven, as we're definitely just shadowboxing here. And then, well, Blink isn't done, so the Cyclone should live for at least another moment. But there's no siege tank, which makes this complicated. The auto-turn... Well, no, that's a Banshee. What a mess. Well. He gets into the main. The shield battery is not in a perfect spot here, but, well, it might be perfect. Actually, I think it's exactly perfect. It covers all the probes as they get back to the mineral line. Meanwhile, the Cyclone is chasing down the Stalkers. He's just ignoring the Stalker going. He could go for the shield battery. He doesn't. Blink is done. Kills a probe. Kills the Banshee. And this is more like the disaster piece I was talking about. Observer, Raven. I'm just whatever's on the screen. I don't know what's going on. This is wild. I didn't want to spoil myself, so I only watched through the early proxy. But the stim is about to complete. Not that it's going to be a huge help here. Double medevac production on the way. There is a 3rd base for hero. Raven decides that it's going to look for greener pastures. He just gets into the main. Combat shield is kind of important here. Unfortunately, he's not going to be having it. And the damage, well, loses 1 Stalker, going to chase it down. The Cyclone on the chase. The Raven, definite select all army hockey, but the Cyclone locks on. The Blink Stalkers blinks away. And what does hero have back at home to defend? There's a grand total of 6 Stalkers. There are barely any units on the field for either side. They're both just kind of whipping out whatever they have and saying, show me what you got. But, the Stalker should be enough for now. There's a Colossus about to complete. He's trying to burn through the shield battery. It's not going to be enough. The Marauder targeted. What a save by Percival. But the medevac gets knocked out of the sky, which is arguably more valuable. But the Colossus being done is a huge deal here. The Observer going to spot this. The Raven still flouncing around. And, well, with the Colossus completed, there's no real hope of attacking on the ground for Percival anymore. The Raven. Another shield battery in almost a perfect spot, I think. He retargets. Well, he gets it. Meanwhile, the Stalkers are just here. And now, one of them in the unit's lost tab. Chaos. But 2 Colossi with extended thermal lance. Oh, he's running into him! Oh, no! Oh, Percival wandered too far! And the damage has already been done. He blinks forward, knocks out another Marauder. There's a few Vikings, but that's a lot from hero. He can target the Vikings. The army supply isn't there for Percival. A lot of it's in production. The Stalkers just whip out another, knock another Viking out of the sky. I don't know how they would whip anything. But the Cyclone tries to lock on, succeeds. But we don't mind soften up the rest. It's just Mass Marauder. But he has the Warp Prism, just dodges the shots, dunks on the Marauders, and Percival, he's just whipping in and out, and G, and hero turns it around. The hero we expect to see. So, a hectic back and forth game. But hero comes out with a decisive victory. The match against SHIN, I haven't seen hero have that sort of a mental block. I think ever. The changes definitely helping SHIN, but I can't help but feel there were some own goals there. As he had a strategy that was working. And then he just abandoned it. Which, you know, is a good way to find out the limits of the new changes. But not such a good way to take home a victory. So congratulations to SHIN. And hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. Found it edutaining. Okay. If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. Thank you to Cranky Ducklings. Make sure to check them out, especially on Twitch, but also Patreon and YouTube. I believe YouTube. So many community tournaments and covering almost everything. So, but thank you for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed. I hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.